Hello, and welcome to the TerraLex Insights podcast, where our goal is to present multicultural perspectives by leading professionals. These perspectives on contemporary issues will help lawyers and business people work better together. I'm your host, Terry Pepper Gavlik, TerraLex's Chief Business Officer. And today we're talking to Stephen Rudner, who's the Director and President of Online Vacation Center Holdings Corp. Hi, Stephen. How are you?
Good. How are you, Terry?
Good. We're so glad to have you on the show. And I actually, full disclosure, I'm a client and had looked forward to my Mediterranean cruise I booked through your company this summer. Sadly, not to be. But we'll hear a little bit about the travel industry. So I think as a starting point, it would be really helpful for you to just give a little bit about your background and what your company does. I know you're a travel company, but you have a little bit of a unique format. So maybe share that with our listeners.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me.
Mm-hmm.
We're a travel and marketing company based in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And we sell travel products, vacations, cruises, tour packages, as well as market those products for our supplier partners.
So Stephen and I had a chance to prepare a little bit for this, and we thought it'd be really interesting for our listeners to hear a little bit about what's going on in the travel industry in the throes of this global pandemic. And we decided we would do that from two perspectives, since your company does, as you just described, work with two different constituents. So one is from the supplier side and one are the customers. So tell us a little bit about from the supplier side, cruise companies, airlines, et cetera. What's going on and what are some of the issues that they're facing and I can only imagine, difficulties?
Yeah, absolutely. Incredibly difficult. Seeing as how it's almost September, and we've been, working in this environment since really the beginning of March. Many of our supplier partners, whether that be cruise lines, airlines, have had trouble operating. The cruise lines are on a no sail order issued by the CDC for the most part globally, and airlines have been restricted in a significant capacity. Both industries have had their challenges, specifically on the cruise line side with the no sail order issued by the CDC. Have not had any departures since March. And on the airline side, significant capacity reductions, flight schedule limitations. And I think that has resulted in concerns about what the period has looked like operationally, as well as what the future looks like. And I think that moves right into the liquidity issues that I think is a main concern really in any company in our space, whether that be large businesses all the way down through to travel agencies.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I'm not sure you can say this, so I will, because I don't think you would want to scare your suppliers if they're listening in, but I can't imagine that many of these companies are going to survive if this goes on like this for too much longer. And what that will mean for the world, particularly, we're a global network and our members and our team travel all over the world all the time. And I could see it becoming price prohibitive to do business as we used to do. So there's sort of this ripple down effect. Do you think there will be a lot of departures from these different industries?
There will be some. I think at the highest level, many have already raised the liquidity necessary to accommodate a non-operational period, as we're seeing right now. The cruise lines have done it. The airlines are doing it in assistance with, some have had government intervention in the airline space. And I do think that many will make it. I think that there's certainly the demand for travel is there and will be there. But it really is about doing it safely and when that is a possibility.
Yeah. And so how are suppliers we all read and see about some of the safety precautions. I've actually had to fly a couple times, and I've seen them firsthand, and they've been pretty good on my carrier. But how are suppliers managing customer relationships? Because we equally see every day someone going nuts on an airplane, or getting mad because the airlines are trying to enforce safe policies. And I can only imagine there's even more issues that we don't realize as just average consumers.
For sure. A great challenge, I think, for all the businesses that um, are in the industry. I could speak to the cruise lines, obviously, because we work most closely with them. Norwegian Cruise Line Holdings and the Royal Caribbean Group have partnered to create a healthy sail panel, and they've been working on that for a couple of months now. And that team is responsible for the safety protocols that both of those organizations will adopt. And I think there's a lot of excitement around that. I think the changes that they'll make will really prioritize passenger safety, and I think put them as well as the rest of the industry setting standards there, and put them in a position to operate in the safest capacity possible. So that's good to see. You've seen airlines talking about reduced capacity. I think that's helpful. Filters, other things that they're doing, cabin filters, things that they're doing in order to limit the spread of wearing masks and the like. So I think the way in which they've promoted those protocols has been positive. I think everyone understands that it's important to go through that. And I think the way that the businesses have done that has been positive.
I was going to ask, because I think this relates to client relationship management for these suppliers. What about the financial side of it? Like, whose burden is it to bear when someone had, I know myself included, lots and lots of tickets booked and trips planned and all of that kind of things? How is that being handled?
Absolutely. The way that that's handled really is everyone is all the companies involved in any of those transactions share in that burden. It's the responsibility of the supplier partner to make it right. Whether there's an agency involved, it's the responsibility of the agency to make it right. And if the agency has worked with any other operator, it's their responsibility to make it right. And I think for the most part, what we've seen is the industry really step up and do that. I know that the cruise lines and airlines have done it, where they've needed to refund or issue credits. They've done that and really done it expeditiously. We've followed suit, and I know that all of our other partners in our space have done it as well. So, of course, you'll hear the stories of individuals that are still with their transactions in process and still waiting. Obviously, it takes a lot of time with everything canceled, or the vast majority of items canceled, and trips and vacations canceled. It takes some time to work through those things, but for the most part, it's impressive to see the industry step up in that respect.
That's great. What about the customers, though? Are they being patient, or are they sharing any of the burden? And should they?
I would say that they are. Of course, everyone's situation is different, and there are issues that are specific to each individual and each individual reservation. But for the most part, I think at least our clients and those that we work with understand that these things take time to work through. You've got lots of parties involved in the process, and we're working through them as quickly as possible. I think that, of course, in any event like this, you'll see clients that want us to move quicker or want the industry to move quicker. But in general, I would say that the response has been positive to the way in which the industry has moved through, working with clients and managing the relationships.
So you talked a little bit, and it was encouraging to hear about two cruise lines that are teaming up to develop a strategy for safer cruising. Is that just during the pandemic, or these kinds of travel companies pivoting their strategies for the long term and permanently, whether or not the pandemic um, resolves itself? Please,
I
I
think
hope.
there will be some lasting effects. Um, the way I think safety was always a priority before, which is, for those that are in the travel industry, understand that safety was or of the highest priority prior to the pandemic, whether it be cruise lines, airlines, hotels, resorts. Um, there was a significant priority placed on safety prior to, and I think that this is a time where we're looking at specific issues related to COVID-19, but also um, spread of infection and other things like that. But I think safety will be just as important as it was before, during, and throughout.
So, since this podcast focuses on trying to help lawyers and business people learn how to work better together, I think it's really helpful to get this sort of supplier perspective, because a lot of corporate big kind of law firms represent these companies that are the suppliers in the travel industry. Anything come to mind? I mean, so they have to be supportive in terms of customer relationship management and coming up with ways for the companies to help their customers. Um, give commercial advice to feed into these strategies. Any other ideas of how what kinds of issues, business issues, lawyers should be thinking about as they support travel and hospitality companies?
Absolutely. I think terms and conditions, it's always a good time to look at the terms and conditions under which the businesses operate, looking specifically at the ways in which we interact with our clients and supplier partners. So I think that's probably a number one. It's always a good time to revisit it. Something that we do frequently, and of course, it's an important aspect. Given the issues that could arise in this environment. I think general counsel is always, as disputes do pop up, being helpful in that respect, and making sure that both the businesses and the clients understand what their options are. You know, as things are so fluid at this state.
Yeah, that makes sense. I would imagine too that the outside law firm and lawyers and the companies themselves have to come up with ways to handle these disputes and business challenges really efficiently, given that there's probably not a lot of tolerance if they're operating with such a challenged liquidity to pay big legal bills.
Right. Yeah. No. Efficiency, of course, is paramount. Um, I think as the disputes come up or as issues arise, I think managing them, tracking them, obviously responses are required, timelines. I think the tracking of that is really helpful in understanding where each of those disputes is in their own timeline, and if there are any next steps, so that those aren't missed. And helping clients with that, I think I know that would be helpful for us. That's something that we do today. But I think that would be helpful for any business in this industry.
Are you seeing any of these suppliers rethink or rewrite, and I don't even know what flexibility they have to do this, but their force majeure clauses? Because I know that's what helped a lot of people on the customer side, and maybe not as much on the supplier side, although I have seen the reverse of that as well, where the supplier held all the power. I'm thinking of a conference that I know another organization had planned, and the hotel had such a strong force majeure clause, they ended up having to pay a significant amount of money to not have their meeting.
Right. I think it really is. I would say a fluid situation, and I think it really depends. I've seen it go in both directions, and I've seen that even throughout this 6-7 month period that we're entering today. I've seen it start all the way where supplier partners or the larger organizations were backed more significantly in conflict resolution, and then I've seen it flip and go backward to where the clients are more heavily favored in issues, and I would say that is really, unfortunately, case specific or even circumstance specific.
So I actually have noticed lately, and myself included, more people seem to be traveling more. I've had, friends and teammates and whatnot get on planes, fly across the country, fly across to other parts of the world where they can. Do you think people are either starting to feel more safe about traveling, or that they're just at the point where it doesn't matter if they feel safe or not, they've got to do it?
I think there are elements of both. I think everyone is evaluating the risk for themselves. And I think that's a very personal decision.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing individuals, again, like you said, travel is still happening. Obviously, international travel is limited, but domestic travel is happening. Individuals are, we're seeing home rentals, we're seeing hotel stays domestically. I think travel is just such a massive part of everyone's life. It's so core to who we are as people, that we need to do it in some capacity. So we're seeing it, and then again, whether it be families, individuals, work, vacation, it's really just such a personal decision. But I think that the longer this goes, and the length of time that we've been in this environment, the more data we have, the better the precautions are getting, and I think everyone is able to know more about it and evaluate the risk for themselves and their family more appropriately. And I think that that's going to continue to get better, but it's really challenging.
Yeah. Excellent. So in wrapping this up or concluding, any final words for the lawyers, the suppliers, the business people about, how we all need to be focused or thinking moving forward? I guess it just takes a lot of patience and teamwork.
Patience and teamwork for sure. I think prioritizing the things that we can do now, whether that's engaging our clients, if that's for our supplier partners engaging with us, and or their own clients, for businesses like ours, it's engaging with our clients and our supplier partners, making sure that we're doing the most we can do in this period. Again, we're still making reservations for future periods, which is happening all throughout our industry. That's what we can do now. Prioritizing cash and being aware of capital structure and liquidity. Obviously, that's probably the most important thing any business can do at this stage. And I think not only evaluating the current position of the business, but looking at where there might be opportunities going forward. I think that for businesses, not only in this industry, but in all industries, things have changed. Clearly, the way in which we operated prior to operating in a pandemic will be different now and afterward. How do we best position ourselves for the future? And that's what we're asking ourselves. And I think that's the responsibility of every organization to be asking themselves during this time.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you. We definitely agree with that. So thank you so much. As we said at the beginning, we've been talking with Stephen Rudner, the Director and President of Online Vacation Center Holdings Corp. And we really appreciate your participation and insights today on our podcast. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. It was great to talk to you.
Nice talking to you too. Bye-bye.
Take care.